Hello guys, this is Doronsmovies and you're watching the 22nd episode of the lore Q&A. So today I'll be answering some of the questions you guys left on the previous lore Q&A video, and it's pretty much as it always was. Make sure to leave your questions on the newest Q&A lore video, so if you posted a question before, just make sure you copy paste it here again, even though it's sometimes I receive it as spam, but just post it, I will review it. And the other way of doing it is to send me a YouTube personal message or message on Facebook and Twitter, as you have links in the description for that below. Okay, so let's start. Okay, Bob Vader asks, who has a better army? Well, at this point, I believe it's pretty obvious that that the Alliance has the better army, because the army of the Horde went through a lot lately and there was this huge split and a rebellion and all the civil wars. So right now the forces of the Horde are ruined and pretty much the Horde is just rebuilding itself. So the Alliance is definitely stronger in that case, but if you're asking generally, it's hard to tell. Even though Garrosh is evil and he's kind of a douchebag and all of that, he still did do a lot for the army of the Horde. And if we were to compare the forces of the Horde from vanilla to the Alliance ones, the ones 10 years ago, the Alliance would definitely win, mostly because of their siege engines and the no-mission inventions and dwarvish stuff and all of that. But when you compare Garrosh's forces from the rebellion, just before that a bit, pretty much from the siege, and the Alliance forces, I would definitely say that the Horde has a lot of better forces. You can see the better, the walls, you can see the catapults, machines, and all sort of insane stuff that he invented. Not he, but the goblins he hired. So there's a bunch of stuff there is to the Horde army. Even something is pretty much war illegal, but still. So if you saw at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar, Gelbin did, however, take some of the artifacts and the goblin inventions, so he's kind of studying it in order to implement it into the goblin inventions. So my idea is that after Gelbin finishes his work in Warlords of Draenor, and after he implements everything, I would say that the Horde and the Alliance would have an equal army, both technology-wise and number-wise, because the Horde will rebuild by then. Alright, next. Sade Games asks, what do you think of a Warcraft series on TV, and what do you think would be a good storyline for it? Well, that depends a lot on what you consider a TV series. If you're talking about something like the Warcraft movie but in a series format, I would kind of say that it's impossible, mostly because it takes ages to make something like that. I don't know if you saw it, but they just announced that they finished recording the Warcraft movie, so they got the whole 22 months, so that's almost 2 years, just to do CGI, the 3D stuff and the special effects. So that is an insane amount of time to work on something like that. I can see how it would work out for the movie, but it's an insane amount of time for an hour and a half, a 2-hour video. So I don't think it would really work well if they had to provide something like that all the time in 30-minute formats. So I don't see how that would work out in a serious format. Maybe they could do something like a cartoon that would be easier to make, but I don't see why they would do that. I don't see why Blizzard would try to expand in that way. Now, if you're talking about something like the Azeroth Choppers, then I guess, they could do it, but to be honest, I don't really like the show too much. I don't hate it, I like how it's all Warcraft related, and it kind of makes Warcraft a bit more mainstream and all of that, but the format of the show is just something I really don't like. I don't know about you guys, but I watched a bunch of similar shows on history, and it got really annoying after a while. The entire drama thing that you have in all of these reality shows is that they have oh my god, we're not going to make it on the deadline, or they just cut our schedule in half, even though they had it planned on the website before. So it's really kind of annoying to me, and it kind of drags me away from the show, and it doesn't really even show too much about Warcraft, and it doesn't really show too much about the bikes. It's all just these scripted stuff, scripted rivalry between the Horde and the Alliance teams or whatnot. So yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of that sort of a series, but I don't see really how it couldn't come out to television, but I don't see why Blizzard would even do that. If they did, I don't see how it would attract a large audience to the show, because WoW isn't really all that mainstream, and even though it gets a lot of views on YouTube, I don't think it would really attract a bunch of people on the TV. Okay, continuing on. Alwen Mage S asks, first, where is Gorehowl? Garrosh abandoned his father's weapon for a more Sha version of it, but where is it now? And also, could Garrosh have stolen it and have taken it to Draenor? Second, I have recently done more research into Illidan and demons, but there is a detail that never caught my eye. Illidan and the Dreadlords have some similarities. They both have horns, hooves and wings. Does this mean that Illidan is part Dreadlord, or is it just a coincidence? But if he is, could that be how he returns? Alright, so for your first question, I think I answered this before, but maybe I haven't, but I don't think anyone really knows. We've seen the weapon in the Siege of Orgrimmar, as it was just laying around on the ground, and then Jaina said something about it in Lordammar, but I think Garrosh pretty much just dropped the weapon in order to take the enhanced one, like the shine fused one, but pretty much no one had said anything about that, and no one even mentioned it in the War Crimes novel, but I'm pretty certain that at some point someone took it and carried it to Orgrimmar, and that right now it is somewhere around there, I guess, but maybe there's like a collection in Orgrimmar where they keep a lot of their historical stuff and all of that. Or maybe they will rebuild like a new monument to Grom Hellscream in Orgrimmar once they rebuild Orgrimmar, I guess, but the current state is pretty much just unknown. Okay, so for the second one, well, the reason for that is because Illidan uses demonic energies, so he's kind of like a half Night Elf, half demon. The demon half is kind of bigger than the Night Elf one at the moment, and it all happened from the Skull of Gul'dan and the fact that he used demonic energies. As if you played Warcraft 3, you could see, for example, that you have two models of Illidan or the Demon Hunter, but the first model is pretty much just a Night Elf. Looks a bit different, but it's just a Night Elf, and the other one is with the horns and the hooves and everything like that. So pretty much the first one is, when you play with Illidan, the first one is before you take the Skull of Gul'dan, and the second one is afterwards. So you can actually see even Eredar, especially looking like that with all these hooves and all of that. That's because they're using demonic energies, and that's how Kil'jaeden and Archimonde started looking like that. Before they were just regular Draenei. So yeah, Illidan was just a normal Night Elf, and he just changed when he started using demonic energies. Alright, next, Veratich asks, do you know something about the relationship between Sylvanas and Verissa Windrunner? All I could find out that Verissa mourned about Sylvanas' death, but she should already know that she is undead now. But what does she think about that? Does she maybe hate Sylvanas for what she is doing now and doesn't see her as a sister anymore? Alright, so luckily for you, this was all explained in War Crimes, and I kind of explained it in detail, but kind of detail. I didn't really go too much in it. You can pick up the book if you want to learn all about it, but you also can watch my War Crimes video. There's like a summary of what happened, like a larger one that I'm gonna explain now, but pretty much what happened is that they both came to the trial. Verissa came with the Alliance and Sylvanas came with the Horde. And they met afterwards, they started talking, and they actually plotted on poisoning Garrosh, like for two different reasons, because Sylvanas hated Garrosh and Verissa just was angry because he killed Ronin and he destroyed Terramore. Afterwards, Sylvanas invited her to come to rule with her to Undercity, so they could be like the two queens of the Forsaken. But what Verissa didn't know is that Sylvanas would actually have to kill her in her sleep in order to turn her into an undead banshee, because apparently the Forsaken wouldn't accept her as a living in order to be the ruler of the Forsaken. So Verissa actually declined it in order to stay with her kids, even though she never actually found out what Sylvanas was planning to do, but luckily for her, she actually declined it. So yeah, as I said, you can check out the more about that in my summary video, or if you want you can pick up the book, because there is a lot more about that. Okay, next, Santana asks, how much free will did the Death Knights have while they served the Lich King? Were they just mindless servants like the other Scourge, or did they have some degree of free will? For instance, did the Lich King leave them with some free will so they can be intelligent commanders of the Scourge? Well, yeah, when someone serves under the Scourge, he isn't always just a mindless zombies. Some are, but most of them are not, I guess. A lot of Death Knights that worked for Arthas weren't just zombies. It's not like they were just walking around and not doing anything, but they did have a mind of their own, but it wasn't really the same mind they had when they were alive. So most of them just pretty much just wanted to kill everything they see and just see others suffer. But Lich King didn't really control their every single move, like he didn't really control them as puppets, but they had to listen to every command Lich King gave. So even if they wanted, I mean, they couldn't even want to disobey his command because they were actually bound, their mind was bound to them. I mean, there were a few occasions where there were a few paladins that were under the scourge, but they had strong free will, so you could hear them talk about how Arthas is bad, I guess, how the scourge is bad, but they still couldn't really do anything about it because even though they had insane free will, I mean, their willpower was strong of their previous selves, they still really couldn't do much to Lich King because Lich King's bound to them is pretty firm. Alright, and the last question is by Dopogram, and he asks, okay, so my question has to do with Arthas, Ner'zhul and Bolvar. At the end of the book, Arthas had an internal struggle with himself and Ner'zhul. He ended up killing Ner'zhul inside his head along with his old self. So in my mind, that made it seem like he is solely in control of the Scourge, since Ner'zhul equals Lich King. So my question is, when Bolvar took the place as the Lich King, was he taking Arthas into him, or was Ner'zhul still bound as the Lich King? Or is the Lich King his own entity now? Okay, so I always kind of thought that Ner'zhul is still alive, but I was actually wrong, as it was confirmed in the book that he actually did die, like Arthas did actually kill Ner'zhul, so he wasn't in the Lich King, like he wasn't a part of the Lich King. But it was really different when Bolvar took the crown though and became the Lich King. I mean, it wasn't the same as it was with Arthas and Ner'zhul, because if you watch the cinematic, when like the fall of the Lich King, you can see Arthas actually dying. I mean, he wasn't really the Lich King. When you see him talking with his father, like Terranos Menethil, he was actually the human part of Arthas, and he got free for like 5 seconds and then died. But pretty much Arthas' spirit is gone, and then there was no Lich King for like a minute. And then I guess Bolvar took the crown, and there was like he just kind of started fresh, I guess. I mean, he just started as the Lich King, so maybe that's why he isn't as corrupted, I guess, but I'm not certain about that. Okay, thanks for watching. That is all I have for now. Don't forget to leave your questions for the next Q&A, like either by YouTube personal messages, Q&A comment section, or Facebook and Twitter. And don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe. Again, thanks for watching and see you next time.